Folks, Blackstar Network is here.
Oh, no punches!
I'm real revolutionary right now.
Support this man, Black Media. He makes sure that our stories are told.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America, Roland.
Stay black. I love y'all.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, there's a difference between Blackstar Network and black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig? it's Thursday, November 7th, 2024. Coming up on Roland Martin Unfiltered, streaming live on the Blackstar Network. President Joe Biden speaks for the first time since Tuesday's election that brought Donald Trump back into the Oval Office. We'll show you some of what he had to say. Also, journalist Eric Garcia from The Independent says he knows why Latino men helped re-elect Donald Trump. He'll be here to break down that issue. Also, diversity educator Jane Elliott. Oh, she's 90 years old, but she's got some thoughts about what the hell happened on election night. It's time for us to bring the funk on Roland Martin Unfiltered on the Blackstar Network. Let's go.
He's got it. Whatever the miss, he's on it. Whatever it is, he's got the scoop, the fact, the find. And when it breaks, he's right on time and it's rolling. Best believe he's knowing. Putting it down from sports to news to politics. With entertainment just for kicks, he's rolling. It's on go, roll, y'all. It's Roland Martin, yeah. Rolling with Roland now. He's funk, he's fresh, he's real, the best, you know he's Roland Martin now.
In 74 days, President Joe Biden will transfer all the powers of commander-in-chief to an absolute asshole. Yeah, that's Donald Trump. Today, Biden spoke for the first time since America decided to bring back the thug-in-chief, the liar-in-chief, the narcissist-in-chief, the insurrectionist-in-chief, and here's what he had to say.
For over 200 years, America has carried on the greatest experiment in self-government in the history of the world. And that's not hyperbole, that's a fact. We're the people. The people vote and choose their own leaders, and they do it peacefully. And we're in a democracy. The will of the people always prevails. Yesterday, I spoke with President-elect Trump to congratulate him on his victory. And I assured him that I'd direct my entire administration to work with his team to ensure a peaceful and orderly transition. That's what the American people deserve. Yesterday, I also spoke with Vice President Harris. She's been a partner and a public servant. She ran an inspiring campaign, and everyone got to see something that I learned early on to respect so much, her character. She has a backbone like a ramrod. She has great character, true character. She gave her whole heart and effort, and she and her entire team should be proud of the campaign they ran. You know, the struggle for the soul of America, since our very founding, has always been an ongoing debate and still vital today. I know for some people, it's a time for victory, to state the obvious. For others, it's a time of loss. Campaigns are contests of competing visions. The country chooses one or the other. We accept the choice the country made. I've said many times, you can't love your country only when you win. You can't love your neighbor only when you agree. Something I hope we can do, no matter who you voted for, is see each other not as adversaries, but as fellow Americans. Bring down the temperature. I also hope we can lay to rest the question about the integrity of the American electoral system. It is honest, it is fair, and it is transparent. And it can be trusted, win or lose. I also hope we can restore the respect for all our election workers who busted their necks and took risks at the outset. We should thank them. Thank them for staffing voting sites, counting the votes, protecting the very integrity of the election. Many of them are volunteers who do it simply out of love for their country. And as they did their duty as citizens, I will do my duty as president. I'll fulfill my oath, and I will honor the Constitution. On January 20th, we'll have a peaceful transfer of power here in America. To all our incredible staff, supporters, cabinet members, all the people who've been hanging out with me for the last 4 years, God love you, as my mother would say. Thank you so much. You put so much into the past 4 years. I know it's a difficult time. You're hurting. I hear you and I see you. But don't forget all that we accomplished. It's been a historic presidency. Not because I'm president, because what we've done, what you've done. A presidency for all Americans. Much of the work we've done is already being felt by the American people, but the vast majority of it will not be felt over the next 10 years. We have legislation we passed that's just only now just really kicking in. We're going to see over $1 trillion worth of infrastructure work done, changing people's lives in rural communities and communities that are in real difficulty, because it takes time to get it done. And so much more it's going to take time, but it's there. The road ahead is clear, assuming we sustain it. There's so much we can get done and will get done based on the way the legislation was passed. And it's truly historic. You know, we're leaving behind the strongest economy in the world. I know people are still hurting, but things are changing rapidly. Together, we've changed America for the better. Now we have 74 days to finish the term, our term. Let's make every day count. That's the responsibility we have to the American people. Look, folks, you all know it in your lives. Setbacks are unavoidable, but giving up is unforgivable. Setbacks are unavoidable, but giving up is unforgivable. We all get knocked down. But the measure of our character, as my dad would say, is how quickly we get back up. Remember, a defeat does not mean we are defeated. We lost this battle. The America of your dreams is calling for you to get back up. That's the story of America for over 240 years and counting. It's a story for all of us, not just some of us. The American experiment endures. We're going to be okay, but we need to stay engaged. We need to keep going. And above all, we need to keep the faith. So proud to have worked with all of you. I really mean it. I sincerely mean it. God bless you all. God bless America. And may God protect our troops. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
All right, folks, my panel, Lauren Victoria Burke, Black Virginia News, joining us out of Arlington, Dr. Greg Carr, Department of Afro-American Studies, Howard University, joining us from D.C., Dr. Niambi Carter, Associate Professor, University of Maryland School of Public Policy out of Washington, D.C. So 2016, I remember seeing this video right here of President Barack Obama, of course, welcoming Trump after the election. You know what I can't find, Lauren? I can't find any video of Donald Trump welcoming Joe Biden after the 2020 election. You know what I can't find? I actually can't find any video of Trump from the 2021 inauguration when Biden got elected. And so this is what we have. Democrats abiding by the systems, being gracious, being accepting, talking about the norms, and here you have an asshole who's coming back into the Oval Office who mistreated, degraded, wouldn't show up, wouldn't do different things, and, oh, Democrats are supposed to behave and do the right thing, and you got somebody who doesn't give a damn about any of that.
Correct. And I think, you know, I've been talking to a lot of people, I'm sure, as you have, Roland, in the last few days, obviously, since Tuesday. And it is shocking to me, actually, how matter of fact the Democratic Party leadership is. I say the leadership, not the rank and file, because the rank and file is definitely aware of what's about to happen. I'm not saying that the Democrats in elected office don't, but they're way too calm. They're way too matter of fact. This party needs a overhaul at the top. They need a overhaul. They need somebody who is more RFK in their attitude. They need a Sonny Corleone type. They need an LBJ type. They need somebody who can deliver the LBJ treatment. They don't have that. And just in the thing that we see right now where the House is still being decided and the Republicans are putting out messaging that we've won the House, we're just waiting for the results to come in. And the Democrats are saying absolutely nothing. I mean, that's just such a great example of it. And to me, Biden's speech today is another example of why you need generational change sometimes. And I'm not a big fan of just generational change for the sake of generational change, because some of these older members are really good. But in this particular example, that speech today to me is so out of step with what we saw in the last, like, say, 2 weeks of the campaign from Donald Trump and of course from J.D. Vance, who's calling the vice president trash, and the racism at Madison Square Garden and everything else. And you have to have a reaction to that. You cannot just go out there and act as if it's 1992 or 96 or something like that. And the Democrats have a huge problem with that. And it's getting old extremely fast.
Here is, right here, Niambi, Mike Davis. This is the person who's often been talked about, is going to be, let me see if I can get the video straight, who's often talked about as more than likely Donald Trump's attorney general. Listen to this.
Let me just say this to Big Tish James, the New York Attorney General. I dare you to try to continue your lawfare against President Trump in his second term, because listen here, sweetheart, we're not messing around this time, and we will put your fat ass in prison for conspiracy against rights, and I promise you that. So think long and hard before you want to violate President Trump's constitutional rights or any other American's constitutional rights. It's not going to happen again.
We've been warning people on the show, Mike, this isn't the same Trump administration. Stop messing around. Don't rig elections. Don't illegally vote. Don't try the funny business, because we know the team this time, and they are not effing around.
Oh, so now let's be clear. The reason, this is also Benny Johnson. How much money did Russia pay you, Benny? Also, how much money did they pay Tim Pool? Yeah, all of y'all. But here's also what's funny here, Niambi. They're whining about, oh, elections were rigged. I'm curious. The same Republicans who won on the same ballot, how did they win? But Trump lost. Oh, and remember on election day, Trump, law enforcement, cheating in Pennsylvania. He eventually wins. Oh, I'm sorry, what happened to those allegations? Oh, they just mysteriously went away. But again, this is what people better expect. The thugs are coming. The thugs are on their way. You're not going to have, in this administration, you're not going to have a Bill Barr who ain't, first of all, he's a nice thug. No. We're getting thugs. We're about to get criminals who are going to be running every major facet of the federal government. And guess what? America's like, sure, let's take it. Guess what? You're going to get it.
Well, I mean, I think, the disrespect of Black women throughout this election cycle has been really maddening, shocking. I mean, I wish I could say I expected better, but you're exactly right, Roland. This time around, he has a better team. They know better what they're doing. They have no scruples. The guardrails are off. I mean, they actually view this election as a mandate. I mean, Trump pretty much said it. And when he thought he was losing, that's when the elections were rigged. But when he saw things moving his way, he took that by the end of the night in Florida. He was calling it essentially a mandate. And so the kind of stuff that we're going to hear from him and his administration, his acolytes, the people there to do his bidding, we better buckle up. But I also say for the people who voted for him, They think it's only going to happen to the bad people or the people that they don't like. But a lot of people are going to get hurt here, including his own followers, and they will not care. There will be no recourse. There will be no redress because this is the person you chose. It wasn't that they didn't vote for Kamala. They chose him. She didn't lose this election. He won. And he won because the politics of white male grievance and racism and patriarchy and misogyny and xenophobia and transphobia and all of that is always a product that you can sell very easily in this country. And I think we might as well just get ready. Just get ready for what's coming ahead because it's going to be a dark, long valley.
See, you know what? Here's my thing here, Greg, that Lauren was just talking about. Okay? The election was Tuesday. Right now, Democrats control the Senate. Right. So here's what I want to know, Senator Dick Durbin. Are you going to get off your ass and say, oh, damn the blue slips? Confirm everybody.
There will be mostly sunny weather.
Are you going to confirm? Say, no. We running all the judges through. We're filling every single vacancy. No, not going to do that. No, it's not. No, because they might do that. Guess what, fool? They're going to have the House. They're going to have the Senate. They're going to have the White House. And let me remind Dick Durbin what happened when Mitch McConnell. There were in Wisconsin, Ron Johnson and Tammy Baldwin did not want to move forward with a federal judge. Mitch McConnell was like, whatever, run it. Mm-hmm. Democrats are playing a nice game. And it's, no, we're going to be nice. I mean, that's the game they're playing. And the Republicans are like, oh, we about to be hardcore thugs. And folk better understand that. And this is what constantly happens. So all the people who keep saying that, in fact, I saw this video of Elizabeth Warren, and she went there and was going off. Let me see if I can find it, because she was talking about in terms of what needs to happen. And go ahead and take this.
Silver linings. I will not ask you to feel anything but grief right now. Donald Trump won the election, and the consequences will be real and devastating. But I'm reminding myself and you that on the road ahead, there will still be opportunities to fight back. I can't tell you that we will win all of those fights. I can't tell you that we will win most or even any of them. But when we arrive at each of those moments, we will face a choice to give up or to press forward. The far right wants us to feel powerless. Extremists are counting on apathy, cynicism, heartbreak, or all of the above as their rocket fuel. They are counting on us to point fingers at each other and to lose trust in our ability to ever make change. I absolutely refuse to give them that satisfaction. We will continue to fight for each other. Look, 8 years ago, in the dark days when Republicans took full power in Washington, I thought the Affordable Care Act would be gone with the snap of a finger. But the American people rose up. Activists like the late amazing Adi Barkan and countless others put their bodies on the line, quite literally. They made their voices heard. They saved health care for millions of families, and they paved the way for us to expand health care in the past few years. And a grassroots movement against far-right control took back the House in 2018 and the White House in 2020 and the Senate in 2021. Don't let anyone tell you that those victories didn't make a real difference. More people could afford to go to the doctor and fill a prescription. More people could go to work. More parents could afford to put food on the table for their kids and buy new coats for them in the winter. Lives were saved. As the far right works to roll back what we've achieved, they'll hope that we don't have the stomach to push back anymore. But we can choose to prove them wrong. We need each other. We take care of each other. And please, take care of yourself. Take the time you need right now to be angry, hurt, confused. Hold your loved ones close. Find opportunities to be in community with others this week. Take social media breaks. Foster your connections. Make new ones. Reach out to someone that you've lost touch with. Tell them that you're with them no matter what lies ahead.
Now, she wrote a piece, Greg, in Time, and she said that Chuck Schumer should be using every second. She says Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer must use every minute of the end of the year legislative session to confirm federal judges and key regulators, none of whom can be removed by the next president. That's how you respond. You use your power until the last second.
Right. Where are mentioned in cinema?
I don't know where in the hell they are.
I think they're still in the body, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, their masters will call them and tell them to block that. Not that they shouldn't try. God bless Elizabeth Warren and her fantasy world. And I hope that she will be able to rally her constituents to do that. There are two distinct visions, I think, that we hear being articulated in the 48 hours. And let me say, Roland, how important it was, again, for you to do what you did with the Blackstar on the coverage Tuesday night, because I left Howard's campus to come for coverage, and I saw the enthusiasm on those young people's faces, and we all sat in your studio and watched the looks on their faces at midnight. I wanted to fight somebody. I really did, and I still do. And I revel in this moment now, because as our thinking becomes clearer, our resolve gets stronger. And there are two competing visions. I had this conversation on Wednesday night with my students at the law school, who everybody wants to talk. And so we were thinking, how do we approach legal strategies in the Trump administration? It was very interesting to, John Roberts loves the First Amendment when you're supporting intolerance, white nationalism, sexism. You don't want to bake cakes for homosexuals or work on their websites. You don't want to. And so, you can turn that to us. How do we build independent institutions with the vouchers that you support by siphoning state bodies and state money? But we're going to do state and federal siphoning for our programs, and you can tear your Constitution up. There are two competing visions. One is Elizabeth Warren's, the kind of melting pot vision. Be tired, but continue to pray. That is a fantasy. That's what we heard from Joe Biden. Shout out to Joe Biden, by the way, who's gotten some rest and sounds a little better. But that's the melting pot vision. Then there is the quilt vision, the salad bowl vision. That's the vision we have to have. Meaning what? I'm not going to be lettuce. I'm tomatoes. I'm not going to be onions, I'm croutons, whatever. But together we might make a tasty meal, or I can just go back over here in this tomato field. We have to have a plural vision of this country. And what does that mean in the context of what we just heard? We heard a disgusting racist, as Dr. Carter just said. I mean, big Tish James, sweetheart, fat ass. Let's dance, MF. Let me be very clear about this. There is no making peace with that man. I'm never melting into anything with him. He is my open enemy. And if it means then that embracing the First Amendment as a strategy, as what has happened, everything from Citizens United all the way up through today, not for freedom of speech, but freedom of association, you understand? There's a way to undermine this current shitstorm coming toward us by embracing elements of it that force them finally to burst this funky settler enterprise open and focus on the things we can control, state and local government, for example. Even as they begin now to attack the mayor of Jackson, Mississippi, my friend Chokwe Anton Lumumba. Approaching local government allows us to empower ourselves, allows us to do the kind of organization we need. By the way, all the people in the third parties who run for president every 4 years, here's your chance now to work at the local level and begin to be in power on school boards and all of those things. And as we do that, as we organize, what we're going to see is that all empires fracture, all empires fall. Right now, they got over 50 executive orders that they are preparing to do, everything from quote unquote closing the borders and rounding everybody up, which will pancake the economy, to the tariffs that are going to send these hillbillies who voted for Trump into Walmart to get another pair of drawers and realize they've gone up by 500%. We're going to dance now, but the dance cannot be dictated by a sense of a commitment to a fantasy, and that fantasy is that this is a nation. No, we're going to go in the other vision, the vision of every person for themselves, real politics, let's negotiate, and damn the rest. And we'll see who has the stamina to wait it out. I'm going to tell you who it's not: white people.
Well, folks, we're going to continue talking. I'm telling y'all right now, prepare yourself. But you know what? We are. Oh, we ready? Because we've seen it before. And we also know what's coming because we actually believed when the fools wrote Project 2025 what's coming down the pipeline. Going to a break, we come back, we'll talk about what the hell Latino men, what were they voting for and why? My next guest says he can explain it. You're watching Roland Martin Unfiltered on the Blackstar Network.
Pull up a chair, take your seat at the Black Table with me, Dr. Greg Carr, here on the Blackstar Network. Every week, we'll take a deeper dive into the world we're living in. Join the conversation only on the Blackstar Network.
Hi, I'm Dr. Jackie Hood Martin, and I have a question for you. Ever feel as if your life is teetering and the weight and pressure of the world is consistently on your shoulders? Well, let me tell you, living a balanced life isn't easy. Join me each Tuesday on Blackstar Network for A Balanced Life with Dr. Jackie. We'll laugh together, cry together, pull ourselves together, and cheer each other on. So join me for new shows each Tuesday on Blackstar Network, A Balanced Life with Dr. Jackie.
Hatred on the streets, a horrific scene, a white nationalist rally that descended into deadly violence.
White people are losing their damn minds.
As an angry pro-Trump mob storms the U.S. Capitol, we've seen shooting.
We're about to see the rise of what I call white minority resistance. We have seen white folks in this country who simply cannot tolerate black folks voting.
I think what we're seeing is the inevitable result of violent denial.
This is part of American history. Every time that people of color have made progress, whether real or symbolic, there has been what Carol Anderson at Emory University calls white rage as a backlash.
This is the rise of the Proud Boys and the Boogaloo Boys. America, there's going to be more of this.
Here's all the Proud Boys, guys.
This country is getting increasingly racist in its behaviors and its attitudes because of the fear of white people.
The fear that they're taking our jobs, they're taking our resources, they're taking our women. This is white fear.
This is Motown recording artist Kim. You are watching Roland Martin Unfiltered. That boy, he always unfiltered though. I ain't never known him to be filtered. Is there another way to experience Roland Martin than to be unfiltered? Of course he's unfiltered. Would you expect anything less? Watch what happens next.
Well, since Donald Trump descended down the staircase, he just treated Latino voters with utter disrespect. Just disrespect. That's right, trashed them, promised to deport millions of Latinos, had a comedian calling Puerto Rico a floating island of garbage. Yet, according to exit polls, 45% of Latino voters voted for Trump. That was up 32% since 2020. And then, of course, man, these Latino men, they just love them some Donald Trump. They just couldn't vote for the black woman. Eric Garcia, the Washington bureau chief at The Independent, he wrote an article called, "I Know Why So Many Latino Men Voted for Trump. I Tried to Sound the Alarm." He joins us right now. So, Eric, glad to have you here. So, all right, what the hell happened? Explain it to us.
Roland, thank you very much for having me. I remember you and I were in Detroit earlier this year talking about this very problem. You're from Texas. You know that Latinos voting Republican is not uncommon at all. Latinos voted for George Bush. They vote for Greg Abbott. My mom grew up in California. She loved Ronald Reagan. The thing ultimately that happened was, I think you're seeing Latinos are one of the few groups that has one of the lowest levels of college education. And you saw that in the stratification, the swing, because about 8% Latinas moved toward Republicans by about 8 points. But the swing among Latino men, particularly among Latino men between 18 and 29, was massive. And I think a big reason for this is that the Democratic Party, for better or worse, tries to treat Latinos as a monolith, as they only care about immigration. They only care about, when Trump says racist things, but they don't actually do anything. They don't actually address the real needs that Latinos have, which is focus on the economy, that focus on shared prosperity, and they don't make the case that shared prosperity, as opposed to tax cuts for wealthy people, are the way for Latinos to make it into the middle class and to make it into a successful America.
Well, but also, listen, I was reading an Atlanta Journal-Constitution article.
Yeah.
And that was a guy, Cuban, illegal immigrant, was happy to see that Trump win. And he says he knows he's at risk of being deported, but he's still happy Trump won. I saw another article where this one guy says he voted for Trump because of inflation, but his mama is here legally, and his mama might get sent back. I saw another video of a woman saying that, I'm gonna try to find the video, but her two nieces, their dad was deported. They haven't seen him in years, and her nieces voted for Trump. And she said, even though they experienced the trauma of deportation. What the fuck?
It's one of the most bizarre things. I think it shows that for a lot of Latinos, it shows that, for a lot of them, it's important to remember only a third of Latinos see themselves as people of color. A lot of them see themselves as white, particularly Cuban Americans, particularly a lot of Latinos and Mexicans in Texas. I'm sure that you know this, being in Texas, a lot of Mexicans, they sound like Rick Perry when they talk. But they see themselves as exempt or unique or people who are not going to be affected by by these kinds of mass deportations. Even though, as we see, that Stephen Miller, who is Trump's big confidant on immigration, is saying that the denaturalization process is going to begin. That they not only are going to begin deporting naturalized people, but they're going to get in the process of removing people's legal status. But I think a lot of it is that they prioritize the economy. Unfortunately, even if they don't recognize that they're not going to be the ones to share in the prosperity of this, and they also think that they're going to be kind of the exempt from the deportations.
Well, let me tell you something right now. If that dude's mama gets deported, guess what? That's on him. And I'm gonna play Scarface's No Tears. I'm being real honest. A lot of these people, Eric, who voted for Trump, I'm sorry. I'm not gonna have any tears for you when you're like, oh my God, I didn't think it was gonna happen to me. Well, who the hell will you think he was talking about when he said, I'm deporting 11 million?
Yeah. The same thing could be said about how a lot of white, non-college educated voters have been the ones who have borne the brunt of the slashes into the social safety net, and yet they continue to vote Republican. We see this consistently, that people who do benefit from Democratic policies consistently vote for Republicans. And it looks like Latino voters are going the way of a lot of white working class voters who benefit from Democratic policies, but still want to see themselves as exempt or don't want to see themselves as like those other types of people.
Well, I think you said it and we also have to own up to this. It was going back to 2012. I remember that was this conversation, and I was at CNN, and it was about white Latinos. Yeah. And I remember we were on a call, and they were grappling with how to deal with this topic. and there was one of the white CNN executives goes, "There's no such thing as white Latinos," and somebody on the call said, "That's not true. I'm one of them."
Yeah.
So one of the CNN staffers said she saw herself as a white Latino. So when we talk about that by 2043, the nation will become a nation majority of people of color in 2043. Not really, because when you have a lot of Latinos who consider themselves to be white or white adjacent, who want to assimilate, then that's just an extension of whiteness.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we can even look at let's even go back to the beginning of the 20th century. Look, my stepdad came from an Irish American family, and for the longest time, as you know, Roland, a lot of there were a lot of Germans who moved to Texas, and initially Germans were not seen as initially white. There were a lot of Italians and Poles who moved to the United States, at the turn of the 20th century, and they were not seen as white. In fact, one of the reasons why we restricted immigration in 1924, 100 years ago to this day, under the Johnson-Reed Act, was because people didn't want to have Italians and Poles and Catholics. And guess what? Now Italians, Poles, Irish, Germans, guess what? They're all seen as white. And it is very possible, and I've said this for the longest time, the ultimate question for American politics, the defining question, is whether Latinos are going to wind up being seeing themselves continually as people of color, or whether they're going to be incorporated into whiteness in a very similar way that Italians and Poles and Germans and Irish were seen at the turn of the 20th century.
Well, I'm going to tell you right now, I can guarantee you this. There are going to be a lot of Latinos crying, shedding tears, whining, "Oh my God, I can't believe this happened to me." And I'm sorry, black people are going to say, "Who the hell do you think they were talking about?" Eric, I appreciate it. Thanks a lot.
I appreciate you too. Thanks, Roland.
Listen, Niambe, it's a bunch of people who are about to find out. It's a bunch of old-ass white people who are about to start crying when their Social Security gets cut. I mean, the Republicans have already introduced a bill. A bunch of these folks who love that $35 insulin, bye-bye. Oh, if they control the House and the Senate and the White House, Affordable Care Act, maybe in trouble. I mean, we can go down the line. And so I said it on election night. This is how Roland's going to be looking in the first 6 months.
Well, I mean...
And they're going to be asking, "How do you feel? What's for lunch?"
Yeah.
Because, again, these are the three: black women, American Jews, black men, top 3 voting folks for Kamala Harris in this election. If y'all couldn't figure it out, come talk to us, because we know exactly who this asshole is.
Well, I think we're going to be saying, don't talk to us because we tried to tell you. You didn't want to listen. And I think that's the thing. Black women for so long have been the canaries in the coal mine. We've been the one putting our fingers in the dam, trying to hold this thing together. Everybody else is sort of going out for self. And I think it's something important that Greg said earlier, which is, trying to make community with people who don't even see you as fully human is the end of a conversation, not the start of one. And I think what we're seeing here is that when you look by nationality, all Latino people aren't the same, right? There are some groups that vote more like Black people. The problem is those groups may not be in the majority or not in the majority for long. And then you also have people who define their interests as anti-Black. So yeah, they might like their $35 insulin. They like not liking Black people more. And a lot of people are okay with hurting other people because they think the poop won't splash on them. Right. So when we even are talking about the deportation thing, Latinos aren't the only immigrants. Black people and immigrants, Asian people and immigrants. This is very dangerous for lots of people. And part of what Black people have always used their vote for was not just ourselves, but thinking about everybody else. The problem is we are still seeing that nobody else is thinking about us in our communities. Nobody's thinking about our seniors. Do you know how important that Medicaid expansion would have been for people who are caregivers of parents like I've been, like so many of my friends are? That would have been a game changer for our families and our communities. Yet you see people voting against their interests time and again because their interest isn't in policy. Their interest is in pain. Their interest is in grievance. Their interest is in anti-Blackness. And unfortunately, like you said, a lot of us are going to be sitting on our hands telling you, we tried to tell you. We've tried to tell you. We've tried to tell you for over a century.
Go to my iPad. This was a tweet somebody posted. My white neighbor, a Trump supporter, just called ICE on my Mexican neighbors who also are Trump supporters. They're crying in the driveway right now, getting deported.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Well,
that was, and so this is the video, Greg, I was talking about from this woman talking about her nieces who voted for Trump. Roll it.
Hey, my family's probably going to get mad at me for sharing this, but I truly don't care at this point. So in 2017, 2018, I can't remember exactly the year, but my brother was deported. He was an illegal immigrant for many, many years, but he was deported. On the day that he was taken by ICE, he was going to work with my brother. They worked together, I think. I can't remember exactly, but they were going to work together, and he had his kids in his car. So my nieces and nephews watched their dad get arrested and taken away by ICE. I'm not gonna say that my brother was perfect, because he wasn't. Like, none of us are. But he's not a bad person. So back to him getting deported. So this was, I can't remember if it was 2017 or 2018, but Trump was in office, right? So he gets deported. Some of my nieces and nephews have not seen their dad since he got deported. 2 of them are now able to vote. The 2 that voted literally voted for Trump. They voted for Trump. And I'm like so mind blown that that even happened, because they saw their dad get deported. They were traumatized from it. And for some reason, they find it okay for other people to go through that. I just don't get it.
Tell you, man.
Greg?
Well, hey, you know, Roland, I knew Frances Cress Welsing. And for years, Dr. Welsing would talk about the fear of white genetic annihilation. And people would dismiss her. Well, not everybody. Many people didn't. I'm only raising the specter of the things that Frances Cress Welsing talked about, things that Public Enemy, you know, Brother Rittenhauer, Chuck D, put on the title of one of the albums, Fear of a Black Planet, as you have written, White Fear.
Listen, they sitting here, Greg, they are sitting, my God, you ought to see these tweets. You ought to see these people, like, they calling the cops right now.
Of course they are. But the beautiful thing about it, and this is why there will be some pain. And I you know, I was in class this afternoon with these young people, and one of my students, you know, this is Howard, so and Niambi knows this. For the many years she taught on the faculty, Niambi, you know what I'm talking about. If you get a class over 10 students, you're going to have some African people whose parents came from somewhere else, or they came from somewhere else. It's literally the globe. And this child, Haitian, parents both teachers, 17 members of their extended family here in the United States working, some working several jobs, a couple getting nursing licenses, came here to work, all legal. Now, the small cretin, Stephen Miller, now slithering back into the taxpayer-funded White House so he can get rid of, ultimately, birthright citizenship is what he's trying to do. But this child is near tears talking about how she and her cousin, who have bonded over the last few months, her cousin is now mortified at the prospect of being deported, along with all of these other family members who are here legally, but who are on the cusp of something terrible. Meanwhile, the white nationalists are calling ICE, as they should. Why? Because what they're going to understand, they don't understand it. I really don't care whether they understand. See, I'm not one who has any investment in this country, as I've said many times. So they don't understand the domino effect. They don't understand the impact of this on global policy. And so, and remember, you remember last year we had Tanya Hernandez on the Black Table. She is Boricua, and she wrote a book, Racial Innocence, Unmasking Latino Anti-Black Bias in the Struggle for Equality. And she talked about this whiteness. Dr. Du Bois said a color line belts the world. What we heard from your guest there was that these people are trying to fight their way into whiteness, and they're willing to sacrifice everything, including members of their family and other people, if they can grasp the ring. A century ago, it was the Italians, it was the Irish, who were as white as hell, but in the 19th century, they became white in part by yelling nigger the loudest, the N-word rather, I apologize. But that was the phrase that was used, as you know, in the populist movement in the late 19th century. Tom Watson and, this election will be won by those who wave the bloody shirt and those who yell the N-word the loudest. Well, the Latinos understand that. And so finally, what we see is that these white people are going to fight over the margins of whiteness with whites or aspirant whites who speak Spanish, who are also fighting. This is a war over race. It's a race war. Jane Elliott is going to explain this in a minute. And the casualties will be the very white people calling ICE, because as that deportation rises, as this executive order is signed in January, as this mass deportation happens, and you can't replace them in the labor force, and you then realize what they were actually doing here, taking care of your old people that can't wipe their own behinds, picking the food that is in your grocery stores, and as those prices rise, they will come screaming. They won't come screaming to us. They're literally willing to die if they attain whiteness on the way to the cemetery.
Lauren?
Yeah, I mean, I think that, and I'm sure for Greg, this is certainly true. But for both of our academics on the show, this is certainly true. I mean, we need to get out of shocked mode about the fact that, at the end of the day, the American voters wanted this person. They wanted this archetype that they've wanted for so long. It is the white male strongman archetype we've seen in American history from the beginning. And so patriarchy sort of is a part of that. And whether it's been John Wayne or Archie Bunker or anybody else, I mean, the American people, including Hispanics, have chosen this person. And that's why I think it's unsurprising to see white women vote once again for this. I mean, I know a lot of people are sort of focused on various mistakes or non-mistakes the campaign may or may not have made, and Joe Biden and all that. And certainly those are contributing factors. But at the end of the day, this is happening because Donald Trump is a phenom on the right, somebody who can do things and say things and pay zero price, which is sort of almost always been the case for white males. But he's a phenom in the same sense that Barack Obama was. I mean, there was nothing really wrong with Mitt Romney or John McCain. They were good candidates. But Barack Obama was a phenom. He was somebody that was going to win no matter what. And it's the same thing with Donald Trump. The vice president ran a really good, energetic campaign. Unfortunately, it was only 103 days. That wasn't her fault. But Donald Trump wasn't going to be defeated by anybody. I don't think he would have been defeated by the governor of, Pennsylvania or California or anything else. And so that is what this is. We got to be ready for a national abortion ban, the end of the civil service, mass deportation. I always sort of felt like that was a dangerous issue when that group in Chicago of African Americans complained about the fact that immigrants who were not legal in this country were getting things that they were not getting. I thought they made a good point with that. And so that connects with a lot more people than we may think it does. And that's what brought us to this moment.
I'm telling you. I mean, what you're seeing is I saw. I don't know if y'all saw this. Y'all saw that was this woman posted this comment that her husband's employer had a meeting with all the folks the day after the election and said, "Hey, y'all ain't getting bonuses this year because we're buying all of our supplies for next year because Trump is going to be bringing his tariffs in and the prices are going to go up." And all of a sudden, all those Trump voters in the room were like, like, we're not getting our bonuses? No, you're not getting your bonuses. I'm telling you, Niambi, these people don't understand. They are about to see for real the consequences of who you vote for.
Well, I mean, I don't know how short people's memories are, but I guess I do, right? Because we remember coronavirus and how part of the response or lack thereof was Donald Trump's irresponsibility in that moment. Part of the reason we had the shutdowns and all of the numbers of deaths and things we had was because that man's failure to act on the science that he had and the information and the intelligence that he had. So now we cannot, and they should not, be surprised that this man is going to treat this economy like his own personal piggy bank. I mean, these tax breaks he's promising, we're not rich enough for those breaks. These tariffs, we're going to be the ones that pay those, right? Not the Elon Musk of the world and these other billionaires that he's surrounded himself with. So again, we're all going to have to deal with this and suck it up. But nobody's going to be shocked here but the people who voted for him. And I don't even think they're going to be shocked. I think they will gleefully do it because they showed up to the polls knowing everything that this man did in office, did after, and they still picked him. So, you know, I'm not going to be surprised that we'll hear more of this, but I'm not going to feel a thing about it.
Lauren, a number of people hit me today, and this has been posted on social media, that black students across the country have been getting this text message. Greetings, you have been selected to pick cotton at the nearest plantation. Be ready at 12 a.m. November 13th. Our executive slave experts will come collect you if you don't show up. The president has decided if you don't participate, you will be deported. You are in Plantation C. And so one person hit me up, and they were concerned, and they said, a lot of black students are scared and nervous. And I understood it, and this is, in terms of, I got it, and this is exactly what I said. It's time for them to man and woman to fuck up. And what I said is, it's time for them to put on fighting clothes and stop thinking these young white folks are their buddies because they listen to rap music. I said, Lauren, the white kid who played with slaves grew up and became their master. And so, I mean, and I had to be that hardcore because I need this generation of black kids to realize, yes, it's now your turn to engage in the fight. This notion that it was over, this notion that, oh, things are just gonna be so, no. If you are black, if you are a young black person, if you are in high school or you're a freshman and sophomore, and you are just mortified by what's going on, that tells me your parents did not do their job teaching you American history. Because I have said this repeatedly. If you study American history, there's been no period in American history where black success was not followed by white backlash. And Trump coming back is still the residual effect of the election and the 8 years of President Barack Obama. Lauren?
Yeah, well, you should take a glance at some point at Dear White Staffers, which is mainly a diverse group of staffers on Capitol Hill in Washington. I'm not too certain that the generation coming up is sort of built the same way, certainly as the one in the 1950s and 60s, who is really dealing on a regular basis with physical violence and the threat of physical violence and the reality of violence and murder in some cases. I think that certainly people need to have a different attitude about dealing with the present day politics that exist and stop pretending that it's the 1990s and 80s, which the younger group, the Gen Ys and Zs, don't do that. But unfortunately, some of the older leadership in the Democratic Party does do that. And that is hugely problematic because leadership is required, and it is a certain type of leadership. It is an extremely assertive type of leadership. And when I push people and ask them, well, who in the Democratic Party is that LBJ? Is that person who can bring it, right? And it comes down to older folks that are at the end of their careers, like somebody like Maxine Waters or Nancy Pelosi. And I'm like, okay, who born after, let's say, 1970? And I'm not getting a lot of answers, but there is a coalition there that is a winning coalition. And again, in 2008, Barack Obama proved that. And I know there's a lot of folks that say, well, this happened because of patriarchy and racism, et cetera, and so on. Barack Obama was elected in 2008. Hillary Clinton got 2.8 million more votes than Donald Trump in 2016. She lost on the map. She lost on the electoral map. It's not that I don't think that patriarchy and racism doesn't exist, but I also understand that 15 million people sat home. 15 million people chose the couch. In this election, we need to keep that in mind. But the Democratic Party needs the type of leadership that stops bringing a knife to a gunfight. They keep doing that, and they're losing, and they'll continue to lose because one of their biggest problems is communication. Communication to a lot of these young people on the apps that they're looking at on social media. I think these apps have been somewhat problematic in terms of making them soft, frankly, on a lot of things that we in Gen X didn't have to deal with. But for whatever reason, there's a lot of folks in this younger generation are very sensitive to things that they need to stop being sensitive about and start fighting. Now, I've seen some that do fight, but the attitude has to change to go up against what's about to happen in 74 days.
Well, and I'm going to tell you right now, Greg, and I'm going to say it, HBCU students at PWIs, whether you're Black, Latino, Asian, Native American, or white, I'm just letting y'all know right now, be prepared for Pell Grant cuts.
No question.
Be prepared for cuts in student financial aid. And again, I go back to 1984. Man, them college Republicans were just praising Ronald Reagan. And damn near 2-3 weeks later, when he cut student financial aid, they asses were crying on national television. Well, guess what? It's going to be a whole bunch of white kids running around hollering Trump, Trump, and some black folks rocking their MAGA hat. Oh, my God, what do I do? He cut my financial aid. Well, they told you dumbasses what they were going to do. So, hello.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think we all would observe that circumstances go a long way towards shaping how young people come to full maturity. The circumstances of the 1950s and 60s, the murder of Emmett Till and just the racial terror, the physical racial terror, shaped the generation that became the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee. I was born in 1965 when Vice President was at Howard. I was at Tennessee State. The anti-apartheid movement, early hip hop, that foundation, it shaped that. Most of the young people that we're dealing with, and Abby and I, and you see, your nieces just graduated. They were born after the year 2000. They were born late 90s, early 2000s, and closer to now. The circumstances haven't emerged. The age of Obama was an age of pretty much good feelings in a certain kind of working class or striving class up through the so-called upper class in the Black community. As I said, the last couple of days listening with students and being in conversation with them, I'm a Pan-Africanist. I believe in the African world. And to hear young people whose people came from Jamaica or the Virgin Islands, whose people came from Trinidad and Tobago or Nigeria or Ghana, say as they were gathered in that yard on Tuesday night, as some students were weeping, they began to weep too, or they began to express their rage. They began to express their anxiety. And it wasn't based on where they came from. Why am I bringing that up? They did mention that email today. I hadn't seen it. Texas A&M was evoked as one of the places that, they have friends all over the places, including many of the white schools.
Clemson, Alabama,
Duke.
Absolutely. And my thing is, you have to be careful when you strike a rock, because it doesn't take much. Remember during COVID, when the persecution of those who wanted to kneel threatened to raise a whole slave rebellion in the NFL. When you strike the right one, then it can become infectious very quickly. So let's say in Alabama that email goes out, and let's say a 5-star recruit says, I'm not playing for Alabama. And then one from Auburn says, me neither. And then somebody from the University of Georgia says, after the University of Georgia, I'm going to Fort Valley. And before you know it, a whole ass slave rebellion, except this time there is no Joe Biden in a delusion world to say, you can't love your country only when you win. Brother, I ain't never loved none of this. Y'all understand that these boys are at these schools and these young people, women are at these schools playing basketball because of what they think they can do for them. But you know, enough can become enough. Never be surprised when something happens that sets off a movement. Finally, send that email. Watch some of these young people say, oh, the truck, what time it'll be here? Come on, meet me here. And what you're going to see is I am willing to bet on these young people. These white boys ain't ready to dance when they hit a rock. You hit the right movement, we're going to see something else. And that's going to unify us more quickly than the age of Obama when we were looking for differences between each other. You know what unifies black people more than anything? The common thread of whiteness when it evokes and hits the right key. Y'all better mess around. You're going to see some people in the SEC losing every game, and Grambling and Southern will fill up the damn New Orleans Superdome on the way to the NC2A National Championship. And what y'all going to do then?
Well, hold tight 1 second, folks. So y'all might want to buckle up. Coming up next, we'll have the great Jane Elliott joining us next. She's got a few thoughts about this election, and I can't wait till she shares them next. Folks, support the work that we do. Look, I told y'all, ain't no millionaires, billionaires supporting us. The right wing, they have invested a ton of money into a digital media ecosystem. And they funded it, and you saw it play out in this election. And so your support is critically important. Listen, I've been talking to advertisers, but you know, they scared. And I'm telling you right now, these major companies are going to be even more scared supporting folk who don't support Donald Trump. And so your support is critical. And so you can support our work. Now, remember, I told y'all Cash App changed their damn policies. They made it extremely hard for you to be able to give via Cash App. And so we're still working on that. But if y'all can support us right now, PayPal is R. Martin Unfiltered. It's paypal.me/R. Martin Unfiltered. Send your check and money order, P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. Venmo's RM Unfiltered. Zelle, Roland at RolandSMartin.com. Roland at RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. We'll be right back.
Hatred on the streets, a horrific scene, a white nationalist rally that descended into deadly violence.
White people are losing their damn minds.
As an angry pro-Trump mob storms the U.S. Capitol, we've seen
We're about to see the rise of what I call white minority resistance. We have seen white folks in this country who simply cannot tolerate black folks voting.
I think what we're seeing is the inevitable result of violent denial.
This is part of American history. Every time that people of color have made progress, whether real or symbolic, there has been what Carol Anderson at Emory University calls white rage as a backlash.
This is the rise of the Proud Boys and the Boogaloo Boys. America, there's going to be more of this.
Here's all the Proud Boys, guys. This country is getting increasingly racist in its behaviors and its attitudes because of the fear of white people.
The fear that they're taking our jobs, they're taking our resources, they're taking our women. This is white fear.
Hi, I'm Dr. Jackie Hood Martin, and I have a question for you. Ever feel as if your life is teetering and the weight and pressure of the world is consistently on your shoulders? Well, let me tell you, living a balanced life isn't easy. Join me each Tuesday on Blackstar Network for a Balanced Life with Dr. Jackie. We'll laugh together, cry together, pull ourselves together, and cheer each other on. So join me for new shows each Tuesday on Blackstar Network, A Balanced Life with Dr. Jackie.
Pull up a chair, take your seat at the Black Table with me, Dr. Greg Carr, here on the Blackstar Network. Every week, we'll take a deeper dive into the world we're living in. Join the conversation. only on the Blackstar Network.
Blackstar Network is here.
Oh, no punch!
I'm real revolutionary right now.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America.
All the momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, this difference between Blackstar Network and black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig?
This is Tamala Mann.
And this is David Mann. And you're watching Roland Martin
Unfiltered.
Folks, my next guest has seen a whole lot over her 90 years of life. She, of course, is one of the most noted speakers in this country. She makes it plain when it comes to racism, bigotry, discrimination, sexism. I don't think she's ever been called introverted. She, of course, will speak her mind regardless of the audience, and I love it. She and I got together at the University of Michigan a few years ago. We had a fantastic panel. I don't even know why the moderator was there. They should just let me and Jane just handle ourselves. And also, there's a new book out, y'all. The author interviewed me about this book. It's called Shades of Brown, the official biography of Jane Elliott and the Blue Eyes, Brown Eyes exercise by author Todd M. Mealy. This is the book right here. And when I was introduced to her, Jane held up, she's got my book, White Fear, there as well. So there you go. So, Jane, let's just jump right in. You saw what happened on Tuesday. Break it down. What do you think?
What happened on Tuesday is the citizens of the United States of America decided to listen to a racist, sexist, crafty crook who has no business being in the presidency of the United States of America. We know that, but you see, right now we're in a situation where people who are pale, stale, and male are scared to death. And it's, I read the book White Fear a long time ago when it first came out. And I've watched this thing happen over the last 30 years, particularly the last 20 years. I've watched white males become increasingly frightened of the fact that they are going to lose their numerical majority in the United States of America. And the damn fools don't even realize that they have always been in the numerical minority worldwide. Only 15 to 18% of the human population of the earth is classified as white. And let's make no mistake about this. White is a misnomer. There are no white people. I am not the color of this collar on my shirt. And you are not the color of the OTE on your shirt. We aren't white and we aren't black. We are all shades of brown. And it's time for us to realize that. And it's time for us to enjoy that fact. And it's time for us to stop talking about race. There's only one race of people on the face of the earth, and that's the human race. And oh my God, how long is it going to take us to have social studies teachers tell our students at the junior high and high school level that the word race, meaning a specific group of people, came out of France in 1580? How long is it going to take us to realize that the idea of whiteness and blackness, yeah, quit laughing, this ain't funny, don't do something else.
So Jane, Jane, you made that point there, and they've talked about how these young white men have been, quote, radicalized. You now have these podcasts and others, and they're talking about toxic masculinity, and you've got people like Senator Josh Hawley and Tucker Carlson, and even Congressman Byron Donalds. We've got the return to masculine men. We have feminized men. And so and Trump plays into that. He's strong and tough. And so when you see these demos, when you see 1834 and these young men saying, yeah, Trump is our guy, what you're laying out is right. They're scared to death. It's like, well, where's the place for men in our society? Your ass has been running every damn thing for the longest.
But the problem is, these aren't men. These are boys. And they are absolutely encouraged to remain boys instead of to grow into men. Becoming a man takes a lot of work, and it takes a lot of time, and it takes a lot of effort, and it takes some study, and it takes some education. Any damn fool can be a boy. We've got a lot of them running around. And right now, the ones who voted for Donald Trump this last week was a whole bunch of boys, grown tall, who don't know what's good for them and certainly don't know what's good for the world. We're going to have to depend on women because men don't want to stop being boys. Women have no choice. Comes a time in every female's life when she has to grow up and be a woman. Men don't have to do that. They can be boys for as long as they live. And if you don't believe that, look at Donosaurus T. Rump. He will be a boy for as long as he draws breath because he is encouraged to not to think, but just to react, and not to respond intelligently, but to respond with anger and petulance. And we don't need an angry, petulant boy in the White House ever again. But that's what we have, and we're going to have that for the next 4 years.
What do you make of white women? There was a belief that because of the Dobbs decision, that white women were finally going to stop rewarding Donald Trump. They voted for him in 2016. They voted for him in 2020. According to the polls, Vice President Kamala Harris was doing way better with white voters. According to the polls, she was getting a higher share of white voters than even Joe Biden did. And then come Tuesday, nope, none of that happened.
White women are just as ignorant about race and sex as white men are. And we will stay that way as long as we have an education system that describes all the important things that have ever been done in this world as having been done by white males and a few white females. As long as we don't tell the truth in history, as long as we don't tell the truth in social studies, as long as we teach the lie, as long as we refuse to deal with the truth, that's how long we'll have this problem. And white women don't seem to realize that Donald Trump is going to use them. They need to realize that when he said we've got to put a border, we've got to put a wall on the southern border of the United States because we've got to keep those brown-skinned people out because brown-skinned people reproduce too rapidly, he was absolutely serious. This man is a blatant racist, and he is prepared. The reason he closed Planned Parenthood clinics for a while, and now they're trying to get them open, is because he was quite certain that Planned Parenthood clinics, the main thing they did was offer abortions to white women. That's not what Planned Parenthood clinics are about. They're about a whole lot of things, providing a whole lot of services for women who can't afford to go to the local doctor, but they can go to the Planned Parenthood clinic. He did a real ugly thing when he closed his clinics, and he closed them so that he could keep white women from getting abortions. I've got news for him. If a white woman wants an abortion, she's going to get an abortion. And there's no way he or anybody else on the face of the earth is going to be able to stop her if she can find somebody who's willing to help her do it. And I'm willing to help her do it. Until we make white males, period, males of all colors, and there's only two, and that's brown. There's only one in that shade of brown. But until we start making males as responsible for pregnancy as women are, that's how long we're going to have the problem of abortion. If we could just pass legislation that said that every man who contributed to an unwanted pregnancy would have to submit to involuntary vasectomy, I'll bet we could do away with abortion in a hurry, don't you think so?
Absolutely. Now, on that particular point there, when you talk about Trump and these Republicans, listen, Elon Musk, apartheid Elon Musk.
Wait. Let me stop you there. We've got to stop calling the Republican Party the Republican Party. Donald Trump knocked the letter L out of the word Republican and turned it into Republican because of his obsession with the pubic area. It's time to call it what it is. And he also messed up the word, this United States Supreme Court. It is now the United States Sperm Court because all he and his recent appointees to that court are interested in is sperm cells and what color children they will be produced by their use. It's time to change the language to fit the situation. These are Republicans, and it's a sperm court. Okay, what were you saying?
First of all, no, go to the shot of Greg, Henry Switchin. Greg Carr was sitting there, and Naomi Carter was sitting there. Their mouth was wide open, cracking up when you said that. I'm going to go to them in a second. But here's the thing right there that you're talking about.
But are their ears, wait, are their ears open?
Oh,
We
yeah.
got to open our ears. We got to open our ears and then open our mouths to say something that makes sense. And Republican Party makes sense. Republican doesn't. Donald Trump isn't interested in the public arena. He is interested in the pubic area. Let's call it what it is.
You talked about, again, Trump and Planned Parenthood, and you got apartheid Elon Musk, and he is always tweeting. He's always tweeting about, the population drop, the lack of birthing babies. These folks, what they want is simple. They want white women to shut up, stop going to college, stop taking jobs, lay down, have babies, and just reproduce. Because this is all about fear of losing the white majority.
They're going to lose. They might as well give it up because they're going to lose. Number one, let's stop calling Elon Musk Elon Musk. I taught dyslexic students for years, male dyslexic students. If you move the letters in his name around, you come up with lone scum. And that's what he is. He's lone scum. He is scum. We need to realize that, and we need to stop admiring him because he is able to make so much money off the efforts of other human beings. It's time to give that up. You also need to know that women have the right to decide what to do with their bodies. No man had better tell me or any other intelligent woman what to do with their body until you can produce a child by birth, as I can. Don't tell me what to do with my body. But women have the right to say no, absolutely not. This will not happen.
Let's talk about Latinos, Latino men as well. I just had a segment with a reporter earlier who said point blank, you've got Latinos in this country. They see themselves as white adjacent. They will vote accordingly. They don't see themselves as brown. They will support somebody who wants to deport literally their family members.
Absolutely.
Go ahead.
Because they have been brainwashed to the idea of the rightness of whiteness. There are no white people. We are all shades of brown. We have to realize that those Latinos are just as brown as all the rest of us, and they came from the same place that you and I did. We all came from a country on the continent of Africa. We all started out brown, and it's time for us to realize that all human beings are shades of brown. And I cannot understand why, I do too, I understand why Latinos are calling themselves white, because that's a way to get over in this country. If you can prove that you have white ancestry, you're going to be all right. But what they don't realize is, in the very, very near future, being able to prove that you have African ancestry is going to make you all right, because we are all originally from a country on the continent of Africa. We've got to get over the idea of the rightness of whiteness. It came up during the Spanish Inquisition and should have been destroyed immediately. We've only had to deal with this for less than 500 years. It's time to give it up.
We're going to take a quick break and come back. You know what? I'm not going to go to a break. Let me just go ahead right now. Forget the break. I'm going to go right to questions. Let me first start with Greg. I'm going to start with you, because the look on your face when Jane said Republicans was too hilarious. So I'm gonna start with you. Go right ahead.
Yeah, I'd love to, Sister Elliott. I'd love to ask you about Frances Cress Welsing, but I think I'll hold off on that. I want to follow up with how you your most recent comment there, when you talked about at some point having African ancestry. will be a benefit. We certainly did see that in Moorish Spain, as you say. You see, a touch of the Moor did distinguish you. How would that reversal happen in the racial binary that we have today, particularly since whiteness is a global phenomenon, and in places like, Southern Europe and other places where it's clearly mixing that is going on there for 1,000 years, it hasn't translated into any benefit for Black people. How do you see that reversal happening?
Because we have been brainwashed by our education system to the idea of the rightness of whiteness. There are no white people. We've got to get over the idea that people came from, and just this week I got a letter from somebody who said, after all, white people were here first. They came from Europe and they were here first. And I thought, oh my God, what are we going to do about this? People, all you have to do is trace your ancestry back as far as you can, and you'll find that every one of you have ancestors who came from a country on the continent of Africa. If they didn't, they came from another planet. Every human being on the face of the earth came from a country in Africa originally. You go to church on Sunday, or you go to whatever you worship on Sunday. If you're a Christian, you go and you look at a picture up behind the minister, or whatever it is you're calling your religious leader, and you'll see a man who looked nothing like what Jesus Christ looked like. According to the Bible, he had kinky, woolly hair and feet of bronze. If it was good enough for Jesus, I would think it would be good enough for me and good enough for people like me. It's time for us to admit that our heritage over thousands of years is brown. It's not black, it's brown. We are all shades of brown, and it's time to get used to that and to enjoy it. And make no mistake about this. The number of white babies that are being born is getting less and less because white women are tired of being used. White women are tired of being treated like second-class citizens because they can be used by somebody like Dinosaurus T. Rump. It's time to get over the idea that only women are responsible for pregnancy. It takes two people to make a pregnancy. Now, eventually, I think at the beginning it didn't. I think at the beginning you had two women. You could put two female egg cells together in a petri dish, mammal cells, break down the cell wall, and combine those cells and come up with another female mammal. That's probably the way human beings began. But all our history and the Bible, except for one book, is written by males. So history says males did all the important things that were done, thought all the important thoughts, and fought all the important fights. It's not true. It couldn't have happened if it hadn't been for the women who were there to make more peoples. It's time to get over this idea. What we're doing is blatantly sexist, blatantly racist, and blatantly ignorant. We are living in an ignorant society, and it's going to get more so because of banning books and banning speakers and banning ideas. And right now we're in a situation where people are banning any idea that would even question the superiority of whiteness.
Jane, you told me
as whiteness.
Jane, you told me this book about you from Todd Mealy is on ban list.
Yeah, I'm on ban list, and I think that is. I'm not sure that is. I know I am. I am banned on all college and university campuses.
Wow.
Have been for over. Oh yeah, I am a dangerous person, and I realize that. And I am absolutely delighted to be called somebody who is dangerous for college students to listen to. I'm tickled to death, because that means that what I have to say is threatening to people who voted for Dinosaurus T. Rump.
Well, that's also why I love having my own platform, because they can keep you off college campuses, but they can't keep you off this show because I own it. And that's why we got to have unfiltered programming for folks like you. Niambi.
Mm-hmm. Well, thank you so much for being with us. I want to go back to something you mentioned a moment ago about white birth rates dropping. I know that has been a fixation on the right wing, yet we still see white women voting for white supremacy. So what do you think is happening there?
It isn't just women of color who are stupid. White women get reinforced for being stupid. And we've been doing that for a good many years. We do that by calling the Virgin Mary blonde-haired, blue-eyed, and fair-skinned. We set ourselves up to fail, and then when we fail, we blame it on somebody else. It's time for us to realize that there is no such thing as a white woman. There is no such thing as a black woman. But we use those words because for white women use it because, according to the person who started this whole thing of race, Torquemada, during the Spanish Inquisition, he was going to kill everybody who wasn't Christian, and he was going to turn all the Christians into Catholics. He had killed 2,000 people before somebody made him aware of the fact that many of the people he had killed were Christians. At that time, he realized that you couldn't tell what a person's religion was by looking at them, so he decided he'd have to come up with a way to make that determination. So he called the lighter, and all people were shades of brown at that time, and they are now. He called the lighter brown-skinned people white because white is the color of purity and goodness. He called the darker-skinned people black because black is the color of savagery and evil. And we have been living with that nonsense for less than 500 years. It's time to give it up. There are no white women, and there are no black women. We are all shades of brown. And you and I, whether you want to know it or whether you want to admit it or not, are 30th to 50th cousins because our ancestors came from the same place. And came from the same race. There's only one race on the face of the earth. It's the human race, and we're all members of it. It's time to get over the idea of the Rainbow Coalition and the idea of blackness and whiteness. They have never existed, but we have been using it to keep people in their place for about 500 years. It's time to stop it.
Lauren.
Do I make sense to you?
Oh, yeah. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
Jane, Jane.
Go ahead.
Jane, great talking to you. What do you think of the idea? I mean, African Americans, we spend a lot of time pushing back, arguing with other people, arguing with the majority, arguing that our history is important. Your book is banned on college campuses, which is ridiculous. What do you think of the idea of effectively separatism, of doing your own thing? Because wasting so much time in life arguing with people that have never respected you for 400 years, it gets a little draining. What do you think of just the idea of people building their own, their own centers of learning, et cetera, and just doing that and focusing on that?
Hey, white people have been doing that for years. Do not copy the behavior of white people. Do not move back away from society in order to not have to be around this nonsense. Get out there and educate these fools so that their children are smarter than their parents. We cannot just say these people don't know any better, we'll just stay away from them. Because within 25 years, and it's going to be less than 25 years, white people will become a numerical minority in the United States of America. You're going to have to deal with them in a totally different way. And we are going to have to deal, I say we because I'm considered white. We white folks are going to have to deal with other people in a totally different way. We're going to have to start realizing that the boy grown tall, who is now going to be president of the United States in a couple of months, doesn't even know what it says in the preamble to the Constitution of the United States of America. Think about that. Remember when you learned the preamble to the Constitution, we the citizens of the United States in order to form a more perfect union. Do you think Donald Trump wants to form a more perfect union, or does he want a disunion? I just think it's an absolutely wonderful thing that we should have learned, and we should have listened while he was talking. We aren't doing it. We haven't listened, and I think most of us don't remember it. You remember that when we form a more perfect union, establish justice. Do you really think that Donald Trump believes in establishing justice? He ran for the presidency deliberately and with determination so that he wouldn't have to go to jail as a result of all the ugly things that he has been doing over the last few years. He doesn't believe in establishing justice, not for himself and not for anyone else. It says we're going to secure domestic tranquility. Oh, yeah, right. Provide domestic tranquility by inciting a riot. An absolutely ridiculous mess in January. Remember that mess? That's domestic tranquility as far as Donald Trump is concerned. We're going to promote the general welfare by doing away with Social Security and welfare for children whose parents can't make enough money for them to live on. We're going to do all the things that are in the preamble of the Constitution. I don't think so. We're going to ensure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity. No, we aren't. We're going to ensure the blessings of liberty to white males. And the rest of us are going to have to pretend that we like what's happening. Finally, a whole lot, but not enough, white women have decided we are not going to do this anymore. We aren't going to play this game anymore. This game has been killing women for long enough. It's time for us to refuse to put up with it anymore. And it's doubly time for women who consider themselves black but are brown. They're browner than I am, and I'll never be as brown as you are. But I have the right to see you as brown and to see me as brown and to see all of us as having come from the same continent, a country on the same continent, and be blessed to have cousins that look like you and that look like this gentleman who's sitting here.
This has been him coming back. Republicans taking control of the Senate. They're leading in a number of House races. They'll be in control of picking federal judges. Those are lifetime appointments. You've got the pot right now. It's 6-3 on the Supreme Court. 6-3 majority on the Supreme Court. You've got, talking about potentially Alito, Thomas retiring. What do you say to people who are despondent, who say, my God, they're going to be running everything? What do you say to those folks who are thinking about just giving up?
Look, I remember when Donald Trump gave his inauguration address 8 years ago, and I thought at the time, my God, this is Hitlerian. And I thought, Jane, you're exaggerating. This isn't Hitlerian. And then I got the book, When at Times the Mob is Swayed. And you need to hear just this paragraph. It says, we know from Ivana Trump's now sealed testimony at Trump's first divorce trial, backed up by her lawyer, Michael Kennedy, and from the president himself, that for years, a younger Donald Trump slept with a book of Adolf Hitler's collected political speeches, published in 1941 as My New Order in a locked cabinet at his bedside table. Ugly and appalling as they are, those speeches are masterpieces of demagogic manipulation. People, what we're dealing with is what I remember from the time I was born. I was born in 1933. And from 1933 until 1945, I listened to my father ranting about what Adolf Hitler was doing in Europe and in Germany, and had planned to do with the United States. And here I am at the age of 90, listening to the same demagogic bullshit out of the man who is going to be president of the United States in a couple of months. We have to realize that we defeated Hitler, and we will defeat this man. It won't take 4 years. He'll be in office for 4 years. But think of it this way. He's an old person. I'm older than he is, but he's an old man. And he's not going to live a whole lot longer. We're going to have to outlive him, and we're going to have to refuse to go along to get along while he is the president. There are enough women of color, brown women, very dark women, very brown women, saved this country 8 years ago. 4 years ago, I'm sorry, 4 years ago, they went out in massive numbers and saved this country. They will do it again. And we have to make sure that they know they have that possibility. They've done it before, and they'll do it again. We've got to stop realizing how brilliant these women are. And if you think they aren't, you have to remember that 300,000 years ago, people who look like you left the continent of Africa and without any modern technology managed to populate every landmass on the face of the earth. Every landmass on the face of the earth was populated by people who we call black. And they weren't black, they were brown people whose skin was brown because they were exposed to a lot of sunlight. As they moved farther and farther from the equator, their skin, their hair, and their eyes got lighter. Their brains didn't get smaller, but their features got lighter as a result of the response to the natural environment. That's what color is all about. But we have decided that God must have looked like Donald Trump. Think of that. If that doesn't frighten you, I don't know what will. It's time for us to get into a state of realizing what reality is. And the reality is that if you get to your thesaurus and look up white, look up black, and look up brown, you'll find about 25 synonyms for white in your thesaurus and about 25 or 30 synonyms for black. You'll find 180 synonyms for brown in the thesaurus. That means that there are that many shades of brown that you can apply to skin color on people all over the face of the earth. We are all members of the same race. We're all members of the same color group. It's time to appreciate that. It's time to recognize that. And it's time to educate people to that fact.
But Jane, you have people who don't believe that. You have people who believe.
I don't care. Of course, we have lots of people who don't believe that, but they're going to have to. They have no choice. They can think it's not true until hell freezes over. That won't make it a lie. That's the truth. Ye shall know the truth, and the truth shall set ye free. It's time for us to stop believing in different color groups and different races and realize it's only one race and there's only one color group, and it's shades of brown.
When we start looking at policy, beyond deportation, beyond. Matter of fact, before I do that, I just saw Susie Wiles, who was Trump's campaign manager. He's going to name her chief of staff, and you got folks like Will Cain on Fox News. Let me find this here. He just tweeted, if y'all go to my iPad, worst misogynist just named the first woman chief of staff in U.S. history, C.C. Mark Cuban. Folks, Will Cain, listen, I debated Will a lot. I mean, he ain't the bright on CNN. He ain't the brightest bulb in a dark room. The best thing he's got going for him is a great head of hair. And so, I mean, I used to just destroy him constantly in debates. But, you know, white guys like him actually believe by Trump picking a woman as chief of staff means he's not a misogynist.
Well, it means he's not only still a misogynist, he's a stupid one. Because Donald Trump doesn't think right, and he doesn't read right, and he doesn't know what he's talking about, but I think he thinks that's chief of stuff. She can handle stuff, but she isn't capable to handle that staff. She wants a chief of stuff, and that's what he's got. This man is he's a joke, and we have taken him seriously.
Do you also think
the spot where he belongs?
You also think, and here's the issue that I have, Jane, that mainstream, and I'm going to call it mainstream white media, they toyed with this. They thought he was amusing. He would say things, oh, that's just Donald being Donald. When I watched this year how Joe Scarborough and Mika were all highly critical of Trump, railing every day, I remember 2015, New York Times did a story about Trump and his treatment of women, and Scarborough and Mark Halperin, they were there on the air. Like that's the best they got. I mean, people out there just gonna say, oh, that's just Trump being Trump, and that's what they did. Everything that happened, oh, that's just Trump being Trump. They normalized his antics and his behavior, and it desensitized people, and it literally got to the point that every time he said something, oh, that's just Trump being Trump, we could just move on.
Do you really think that they aren't in any way bothered by the fact that he could buy and sell them tomorrow? Do you really think that they don't realize that he is saying to himself at every opportunity, I could, as my uncle said to my father many years ago, I could buy you and stick you in my vest pocket. Those people know what they have to do in order to stay employed, and they know what they have to do if they want to keep that job and keep their, whatever you want to call what they have. They're afraid to tell the truth. Their sponsors won't let them tell the truth. You know that, and I know that. And that's the reason I get lots and lots of death threats, because telling the truth is not a good idea in this environment.
Second round of questions. Greg, actually this time I'll start with Niambi.
Mm-hmm. So I think you said a lot here, and one of the things you talked about was how a lie is a lie whether we admit it or not. So how do we get back to a place where talking about the truth in very clear terms becomes a norm again? I mean, if it ever was, right? But how do we get back to the place calling things disinformation and other kinds of euphemisms, alternative facts, has been around for quite some time. But how do we get back to a place of just being honest and saying what in the world is going on and not having to do this both sidesism and all the other things.
You reject the language of ignorance. I'm an educator. That word comes from the root "deus," which means lead, the prefix "e," which means out, the suffix "ate," which means the act of, and the suffix "or," which means one who does. An educator is one who leads people out of ignorance. It is not someone who stands there and lets people run their mouths in ways that are absolutely untrue and try to find an excuse for their behavior. You do what my dad said. Don't lie. If you're going to lie, don't lie to me. And he also said, you know the difference between right and wrong. Now do the right thing, goddammit. And that's what we were expected to do. And that's what we did. When someone starts to roll out some of that nonsense that you know is nonsense, you not only have the right, you have the responsibility to say, wait a minute, stop right there. I have here a book that says that just what you just said was a total lie. Do not tell that in my presence. Now, you lose a lot of friends that way, and if you're somebody like me, you lose a lot of family members. But at least you know the truth and you aren't afraid to tell it. My father said, tell the truth, by God. Sometime it'll hurt you, but you better tell the truth. I believe in telling the truth. It isn't pretty, but we better stick to the truth instead of believing. We'll just shade it a little bit today, and tomorrow we'll say, well, we didn't really mean it. Donald Trump means it. People said, well, he's just saying those things. He meant every word of it. And he's going to live with what he planned to do. When he said, I have concepts, he didn't mean he had concepts. He said, I have plans as to what I'm going to do with this country when I get back in the presidency. However, he forgot that after 4 years, he won't be able to run again. So he's going to fix it so he doesn't have to run again. And he has said that. He has said openly, you'll never have to worry about voting again if I'm the president. People take him at his word. That's exactly what he means. Fix it so that he doesn't ruin this country totally with his behaviors in the next 4 years.
Lauren.
Did I answer your question?
Yes.
Jane, I really don't have a question. You filled in all the blanks for me, so I really don't have a question. But thanks.
Greg?
Well,
thank you, Roland.
Okay.
Sister Elliott, we know that white and black are not real in biology, and we also know that, of course, they exist as social forces and as a kind of racial contract. I wonder if you have any thoughts about reparations in this sense. We know in California, some of the folks who are saying, of course, the Supreme Court would not recognize race as a protected class that would allow people to get reparations based on their racial identity. That's their colorblind constitutionalism. We know that. But we also, so if lineage, if tracing back to enslavement would qualify people who were descended from people who were enslaved in the United States, if that were able to survive legal challenge, and I don't think it will because they'll use it as a proxy for race, but let's say it did, should white people proving black ancestry, which is a form, I guess, of embracing their black identity, right? Should white people proving black ancestry be eligible for reparations?
If they're promised reparation, they'll go back and they'll choose that black ancestry immediately. That's all you have to do to mess the whole situation up, is tell white people that they have black ancestry and they are entitled to reparations. If you're gonna really mess yourself up if you do that. Think about that for a very long time before you do it. However, if you're going to give reparations to people who really deserve it, let's give it to the people who had this land before white folks came and stole it from them. Let's give reparations to the First Nations people who also came from Africa and were here long before slavery started, coming from Africa as being brought here by white people who didn't want to work but brought people here to work and so they wouldn't have to. Let's talk about reparations to the First Nations people, shall we?
I agree. But I mean, okay, that's interesting. Because I do think that, ma'am.
Let's give the land back to the people who were here first. And they came from Africa, but we called them red men. We called them red people because we didn't know any better. And we didn't want to admit that they were here long before any people from Europe got here. We think that Columbus discovered America. Thor Heyerdahl said you can't discover a place where people are already living. They discovered it before you got there. This land was discovered long, long before Columbus was a gleam in his father's eye. But you see, we don't tell the truth in history. And we work really hard at deciding what is and is not true based on what white males say should be regarded as truth. That's scary to me, that we are still listening to white males tell us what is and what is not true.
Absolutely. Yeah, and I agree with you on reparations. People, the people who think that lineage won't be used as a proxy for race don't really understand how the American legal system works today. It will absolutely be used as a proxy for race, which then leads me to maybe a final question. Everything we're talking about, of course, exists because of the nation state, because of constructs of belonging and not belonging. And when you talk about reparations for the indigenous people, which of course I agree with 100%, is it possible for us to get rid of race as long as we hold on to this concept of the nation state? In other words, the idea that some people, okay, well, then tell us a little bit about that, particularly as it relates to citizenship, who belongs, who doesn't belong.
Absolutely, it's going to be taken care of by nature. People who call themselves white are going to become a smaller and smaller and smaller percentage of the population of the earth. It's down to 15 to 18% right now. And eventually we will have educated people enough that they realize that there are no white people, so you can't base your importance or your status or your brilliance on something that doesn't exist, which is the whiteness of your skin. It's time, and we will eventually educate people to the reality. It's time for us to tell our children and our grandchildren and my great-grandchildren, of which I have 5, the truth about the human race, that we're all members of the same one. And skin color is not an indicator of brilliance. If it were, when you go out on the beach next week and you see all those pale, stale females lying out there on the beach trying to get tan, then you have to say to yourself, uh-oh, in the summer, whites get dumber. If skin color is an indicator of intelligence, it is not, people. It is an indicator of what the human body has done in response to the natural environment over 300,000 years. Get used to it and realize that before you die, but not before I die, but before you die, brown will be the color of everyone. We'll all have decided that we're all shades of brown, and we'll get over the idea of black and white and red and yellow. For the love of heaven, this has only been going on for 500 years. I think it's time to get over it. And if you don't get over it, if you insist on using the vernacular of the 1500s, 1400s, and 1500s, then you men must all come to work wearing knee breeches and pointy-toed shoes with little rosettes on the toes and powdered wigs. And you women will have to come to work, if you're allowed to come to work, which you won't be. When you leave the house, you're going to have to be wearing a corset that tightens your waist so that your waist is no more than 18 inches around. Now, if you want to talk the way they did in the 14 and 1500s, dress and travel the way they did, walk to work, give up all forms of modern transportation, and descend back to the level of the people who believed in the lie of race in the 1400s and 1500s. It's ridiculous. It's time to give it up.
But can I ask one more question, Ron? Just very quick.
Go ahead.
Okay, so I agree with you 100%. How do we grapple with the fact that, how do we grapple with the fact, and this is why I brought up the concept of the nation state and countries and borders and citizenship. How do we grapple with the fact that whiteness carries a privilege that isn't just about privilege, but about legal and enforceable rights that come along with membership in a society, so that therefore, and this is where Elon Musk comes in again, you know, this guy who was raised in apartheid South Africa, where white minority rule was set up, now in this society, just because the majority is non-white doesn't mean a legal system with enforceable rights that will preserve minority rights won't just transfer those, or will continue to reinforce whiteness, even though it's a numerical minority. And of course, we know whiteness is also very flexible. So that where earlier we were talking about the Italians, the Irish, others who were brought into whiteness by defining themselves by not being black, we're seeing the same thing in the Spanish-speaking community, and in something we really don't want to talk about, I don't think, the Arab community as well. The Palestinians are the orphans of the region, even as they're treated by the Saudis and others. In Dearborn, Michigan, the Arabs, who on the United States Census, Arab is classified in white, right? They are also invited into whiteness. How do we grapple with the fact that whiteness also carries some legally enforceable benefits?
First, you read the book, The Color of Law. Have you read this book?
Yes.
If you haven't read the book, The Color, yeah, you have read it. There's a lot of good stuff in there that will answer your
Come on,
question.
Jane.
What we have to do is
Jane, you don't see all Jane, you don't see all them damn books behind Greg? Jane, if you name 5 books right now, I can guarantee you Greg gonna pull a copy from behind him.
He's selling the wolf ticket. Now, don't do that. I was going to get the color of auto. But anyway.
Attack from within. Attack from within. Attack from within. Have you read it?
Attack from Within. That one I don't know. She got me wrong.
She got you, Greg. Greg, she got you.
Maybe.
Oh boy. Get the book, Attack from Within. And then you'll know where Donald Trump gave that business about attack from within. He got it from this woman. Read this book if you haven't read it. Have you read? Have you read?
Came out in February.
Have you read When at Times the Mob? Have you read it When at Times the Mob is Swayed?
No, these are popular books, right? Because Attack from Within looks like it came out this year.
What are you talking about? Well, listen, dude. No, this didn't come out this year. It came out several years ago. Hey, darling, you're playing catch-up ball when you're talking to me. I was reading books when you were 5 years old.
I'm sure you were, but I really would appreciate an answer to that question of citizenship and how whiteness and minority.
Oh, go ahead.
They do.
All right, we do it. It happens because we allow it. As long as you allow it, that's how long it will continue. You're going to have the nerve and the guts and the determination to say, no, by God, there are no white people and there are no black people. Unless you have a severe problem, you are not white. We've got to get over the idea of whiteness. It is a lie that has been told for less than 500 years. We need to give it up. But as long as you go along to get along, that's how long it will remain strong.
Okay.
The people in the United States of America within the next 25 years are going to have to realize that not only are they not white, but they are also no longer in the numerical majority in this country. And that is what has white males scared to death, because they're afraid that if they lose their power, they will be treated by other people the way we have treated those other people. That's what's going on. When I do the blue-eyed, brown-eyed exercise, and I know this sounds childish to you, but it's a good lesson. When I do the blue-eyed, brown-eyed exercise, I realize on the first day, brown-eyed people are on top, blue-eyed people are on the bottom. Second day, and the brown-eyed people are vicious to the blue-eyed kids. Second day, I dread to go back into the room and reverse that because I know the blue-eyed people are going to get even. They say they are going to get even. I listen to the boys in the restroom say we're going to get even with those brownies when we're on top. Then they get on top. And every year, and I've done it for years, the blueies don't get even. And at the end of the program, on the next day, I say to them in the magic circle, you blue-eyed kids said you were going to get even with the brownies. Why didn't you get even? And almost in a chorus, every year they say the same thing. Because we found out how it feels to be on the bottom, and we didn't want to make anybody feel as bad as we did when we were on the bottom. That, I think, is the hope of humankind. I know that people of color do not want to treat what we call white people the way white people have treated them, because they know what will result because of that behavior. We will separate ourselves and divide ourselves and stay that way forever until white people realize that they don't have to fear people of other color groups, other darker brown groups. All they have to do is realize that we are all the same humans under the skin, and the color of our skin is just the result of our body's response to the natural environment. It has nothing to do with being God's chosen children. We have to educate the hell. We have to educate the hell out of this situation, because what we're in is hell. Make no mistake about this.
Yes.
All right then. Jane Elliott, it is always a pleasure to chat with you, to hear from you. I want to encourage everybody who's watching this, everybody, to get Todd Mealy's book, not only because it's the biography of Jane, and not only because he interviewed me for it, but really, it is a great story of a woman who, the day after Dr. King was assassinated, committed her life to this work, and she's been pissing people off ever since. And it doesn't matter. And I keep saying, We need a whole lot more Jane Elliott's and a whole lot more Tim Wise's in this world because we've got to challenge. And the reason I say that because we got to have folk who are willing to challenge white folks. It's always interesting, Jane, where they want to bring a black speaker in to talk about diversity or to talk about this stuff. And I always say, no. You need white people who talk to white people to have some honest conversations.
But you got to find white people who know the truth.
And there you go.
And refuse to call them and refuse to call themselves white. You've got to have white people who are brown, who came from the same place that you did originally, and we've got to realize that. We've got to get it into the heads of our kindergartners, and then from kindergarten to senior high, we've got to convince children that we are not different shades of white, black, and brown, and red and yellow. We are different shades of brown, and we are all 30th to 50th cousins because we all came from the same place. Until we get that into our children, we'll never get it into our adults.
All right, then. Jane Elliott, thank you so very much.
Well, thank you.
I appreciate it. You be well. Final topic I got to deal with, and when I say I am sick and tired of the bullshit from Senator Bernie Sanders, I'm just tired of it. After the election on Tuesday, he decides to send out this statement. Go to my iPad. Sanders' statement on the results of the 2024 presidential election. It should come as no great surprise that a Democratic Party, which has abandoned working class people, would find that the working class has abandoned them. First, it was the white working class, and now it is Latino and black workers as well. While the Democratic leadership defends the status quo, the American people are angry and want change, and they're right. Today, while the very rich are doing phenomenally well, 60% of Americans live paycheck to paycheck, and we have more income and wealth inequality than ever before. Unbelievably, real inflation accounted for weekly wages for the average American worker are actually lower now than they were 50 years ago. Today, despite an explosion in technology, worker productivity, and he goes on and on and on. He goes on talking about the spending with Israel. He talked, will the big money interests in well-paid consultants who control the Democratic Party learn any real lessons from this disastrous campaign? Will they understand the pain and the political alienation that tens of millions of Americans are experiencing? And blah, 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 blah. In the coming weeks and months, those of us concerned about grassroots democracy and economic justice need to have some very serious political discussions. All right, here's why I got a problem with the statement, Lauren. He wants to throw in Latino and black in this. No, and I said this after 16, and I said it after 20. No, Bernie, what I was just saying with Jane Elliott, you need to take your ass and go talk to white working class people. Because if you actually look at the agenda of Biden-Harris, it was a whole lot that the working class got. And when you say working class, what are we talking about? Union workers? What are we talking about? And Sanders keeps going with this as if he's not a United States senator, as if he can't mobilize people. And it gets on my damn nerves when you act like stuff did not get passed. And so he keeps saying they are abandoning working class people when he wants to deny the reality of whiteness and also white culture that also drives the voting habits of working class people. How is it that black working class folk got it, and he's wrong in his press release, black working class people, we figured it out, but the other folk didn't?
Well, while he may not be the best messenger of what is in that statement, and he's likely not, because I think that Vice President Harris overperformed in Vermont over him. And of course, you know, Bernie Sanders, was beaten in the primaries. So I'm not sure the voters were buying, that message that he has. But that populist message, unfortunately, that he has is not popular in the Democratic Party. There is a corporate kind of control that goes on in both of the parties, and I think what he's really getting at is the fact that subjects like poverty, homelessness aren't even on the table.
But here's the deal, though.
Talked about.
No, Lauren. I can't. He didn't mention one of those two. In his statement, he didn't mention poverty. He didn't mention homelessness. He mentioned technology, AI. He mentioned health care. He mentioned spending money with Israel. He didn't mention that. So I'm gonna go with what he mentioned. And so now he did mention the ruling class, but I think you got to separate these consultants by saying, oh, they have ignored the working class. Their agenda didn't ignore the working class.
He mentioned the wealth gap in this country, which is extremely sizable and something that rarely comes up unless he's talking.
But the policies of Biden-Harris actually address the wage of workers.
Her primary message was democracy, the threat of Donald Trump. Her primary message was abortion, the threat of democracy, and the craziness of Donald Trump. There's nothing wrong with that message. I don't have any problem with that.
But
what I'm saying to you, is that
but she also talked about housing.
Conversation
she talked
never gets had, and it's still not getting had. I mean, anytime anybody brings this up, it's like nobody can talk, right? When we talk about poverty or homelessness or 40 million people in poverty, like nobody wants to hear that.
Well, first of all, I don't know who the hell nobody is. I don't know who nobody is because we talk about it. But the point I'm making is with Sanders keeps saying they are being ignored. Now, if Sanders is saying that we're not messaging to workers, okay, but to say that Democrats are ignoring the working class, if I look at actual policies over the last 4 years, that's actually a lie.
Nina Turner tried to run, remember, for Marcia Fudge's seat. Who did she get blocked by? She got blocked by the leadership in the Democratic Party. I'm not
Nina Turner got blocked by. She got blocked by voters in the district.
Is a disciple of Bernie Sanders, and the Democratic Party doesn't want to hear that message. I mean, I'm not saying they're wrong.
No. She lost. She got blocked by the voters in the district.
No.
Yeah, she got blocked by the Democratic Party.
Okay, no. First of all, let's be clear. She ran what, 2 or 3 times? Okay.
Yeah.
And let's be clear. The first time she also outraged folks. But I'm still dealing with Sanders here. Again, is the question.
Bush and Summerlee and Jamal Bowman, nobody stands up for them. Nobody says anything. When they talk about populist stuff, nobody wants to hear it. When I say nobody, I say the leadership in the Democratic Party.
Okay, specify then. Don't say nobody.
Nobody.
Because that's not true.
Anything. Okay.
No. Don't say nobody.
Like they're outcasts. They're rebels. They're problematic. You know, I'm telling you, Roland. I know that Bernie Sanders is not the right messenger. I'm not disagreeing with that. But what I am saying is that there are certain topics that when they come up, there are Democrats in the leadership that really just don't want to hear it.
And what I'm saying is
Vice President Harris's primary message, no problem, was on abortion, was on democracy,
I got it.
No problem, was on Trump being dangerous, no problem. That her primary message was those things, but what people want to hear about is the economy and, of course, jobs.
And what I'm saying is, if you're Sanders, be specific. When I read Niambi, Democrats ignore the working class, and I look at actual policy, that's not true. Now, if you're...
They don't message it, Roland.
Okay, hold on. And what I'm saying, Lauren, messaging... No, Lauren. Messaging and ignoring are two separate things.
So why are they not messaging that? They have done a lot of things. Why
and what
are
I'm
they
saying,
messaging it?
And again, what I'm saying is there's a difference between when somebody says ignore, that means you're actually doing nothing. Niambi, when I look at actual policies, the policies are there. Now, if you're saying that that should be the primary message, it's a different conversation. And this is where Sanders gets criticized because he's constantly saying Democrats are doing nothing for the working class, and then people go, this. What is this called? Niambi, go ahead.
Yeah, well, I think part of it is just the sort of a misunderstanding. This realignment happened long before Trump got into office. He benefited off of the white working class walking away from Democrats in the 1980s. So this is not a new trend. He's not rearranged the sort of political landscape and made all these white working class voters come to him. Um, they've been there. I think what is bothersome perhaps about the Sanders messages, it always comes back to let's go after these people who don't show up for you and try to get them back. And what you're saying is, well, the attempts to try to get them back are still not convincing. And Lauren is saying it's the messaging. I think it's a little bit of all of those things. The white working class has found themselves angry and left behind. That's not necessarily the Democrats' fault, but they feel like it is. So they've gone to Republicans who've shown themselves anti-union, to not have been very invested in building the infrastructure in their communities, really the Biden administration, right? Trying to ramp up infrastructure in these communities. But what they also want is a world and a life that is just not coming back. And I think that's a really hard message to take. But I think we hear this every few years from Bernie Sanders. And I think what strikes me is that what it basically says is stop talking about all this other stuff and talk about stuff that white working class men want to hear. And to do that, perhaps, I'm not saying it does, means that to do that in a way that they want to hear, you have to abandon your core base. And what Democrats are trying to do is talk about this stuff broadly, and not talk about or talk to them directly. And I think that's where the misstep is, not necessarily in the policy. It's in how are they reaching out to these communities. But it's also hard to argue with racism. Jonathan Metzl's book, Dying of Whiteness, gets to the heart of some of this. Some of these communities that we're talking about in Ohio, in West Virginia, in Pennsylvania, and these other places are having a hard time. But part of what's happened is they voted against their economic and other interests in favor of their racial interests. And that's kind of undid these communities too. So I think it's much more complicated than talking to regular people. And whenever I hear that from Bernie Sanders, I just think you're talking about white men. Just say that. Don't talk about regular people.
Right. That's
Don't talk about working class. Just say white men.
And see, that's the reason I keep I'm honing on this, Greg, why I keep saying you got to be specific, because I don't like speaking in general. And when Bernie, and I remember, a few years ago when Bernie Sanders was going in on identity politics, and I said, I hit Jeff Weaver and I was like, yo, he keep doing that shit, I'm gonna light his ass up. And he actually said, can I get y'all together? I said, sure. And I went to a meeting in his office in Washington, D.C. And I literally said, Senator Sanders, I'm being clear with you. I'm gonna light your ass up if you keep doing this, because when he kept saying identity politics, what I said, what you don't understand is all politics is identity. I said, but when you refer to identity politics, he was in his feelings because black people did not vote for him against Hillary. He was in his feelings because other people didn't. Well, he also did not campaign directly to a lot of those audiences. He didn't have the history other folks did. And so when he's making these points, he wants to make it as if, oh, we're not speaking to their interests. Well, here's the deal. West Virginia is broke as shit. Is illiterate as hell. They get more government funding, and they are on the government dime. And guess who they vote for? Red up and down. Opioid crisis. Oh, they were complaining in West Virginia. Who they support? Somebody who's in the pockets of prescription drug companies. And so this book right here, White Rural Rage, The Threat to American Democracy by Tom Schaller and Paul Wallman, same thing. So you gotta call a thing a thing. And when you keep saying, oh, they're ignoring the working class, at first it was white, now Latino and black. No, bro, a lot of these folk, they are voting for white culture. They're not voting for economic interests. When 600,000 Teamsters gets their pension saved, and Teamsters are like, yeah, no, we're not going to endorse. We're not going to endorse. You don't want to endorse somebody who is part of the most pro who cast the most pro-union at White House in more than 50 years, the woman who actually cast the tie-breaking ballot to hook y'all up, they were voting for a white man, Trump. And Sanders has to call a thing a thing.
Yeah, I think it's late in the day for Bernie Sanders to change his political ideology. He's an old school socialist. And, you know, the materialists, the race reduction, I don't say they're race reductionists. Race will never out-Trump class. And the irony of it is, and, you know, Jane Elliott's right, race is not real, except it is real in the social world. And he can't see how his whiteness has blinded him, ironically, from race. I mean, in some ways, it's the tale of two sisters. Remember when Bernie Sanders was running? And of course, Lauren, I mean, nobody could disagree with the fact that the Democratic Party has an establishment like the Republican Party. Well, the Republican Party different now, but they don't like those people who veer too far to the left. Bernie Sanders is independent. He caucuses with the Democrats and ran for the Democratic nomination for the same reason that I often vote with the Democrats. I don't give a damn about the Democratic Party or the Republican Party, but I do understand that one of those two parties is most beneficial for black people. And I'm thinking now about working class and the poor black people, and I agree, he's the wrong messenger. If William Barber were to say something like that, or to say it in a different kind of way and include race, then I think people could hear it differently. Now, you know, but that having been said, two sisters, Breonna Joy Gray, who was working in his campaign at the top level, who in many ways understands race, but also is kind of more materialist. She's going to go with the class thing, and she's out there now, duopoly, both parties are the same, burn it all down. Okay. Nina Turner, who worked at the top of Bernie Sanders' campaign, who will integrate race differently, and she absolutely was kneecapped by the Democratic Party and Shontel Brown out there in Ohio, even as she had ran several times. The same kind of way that they had to do anything to stop Bernie Sanders from winning the nomination. Shout out to Jim Clyburn in South Carolina. But that having been said, Bernie Sanders' problem is a race problem. It has always been a race problem. Remember, Bernie Sanders was the campaign chair of the Rainbow Coalition in Vermont for Jesse Jackson. The difference between a Bernie Sanders and a Jesse Jackson is Bernie Sanders can never get off that old school, I don't care if we call you the Marxists or the Communist Party in the 1930s and 40s, race will never trump class in Bernie Sanders' world, and he keeps shooting himself in the foot on that regard, and there's nothing that can be done about this late date in the game. Maybe William Barber should sit and talk with him. Maybe they can come.
Yeah, and that is so the frustration. That's it, Greg. The frustration, Greg, that I have when, and I've listened to Sanders a lot. I've listened to his long speeches and rallies, and you nailed it. In fact, he said, it's class, it's class, it's class, it's class. And I keep saying, dude, you cannot deny the reality of race. This thing goes back, when you go back to post-Reconstruction,
right,
where broke white people align with formerly enslaved people of African descent. And in every period of American history, when black people fight for rights, civil and economic rights, the quality of life for white people goes up.
Absolutely.
It was black people during Reconstruction who were elected to the South Carolina legislature that created what is known today as the publicly financed education system.
That's right.
Black people created that. And so what did the white plantation own? Oh, hell no. We cannot have these Negroes aligning with these white people. So what did they do? Which King talked about in his speech on the steps of Montgomery, of the Alabama State Capitol, when he talked about a book where he said the bourbon class. They said, guess what came in? Jim Crow. Guess what came in? Utilizing media to create a wedge between broke white people and formerly enslaved people. And that wedge that was created post-Reconstruction still exists. So in Bernie's mind, oh no, it's class. Okay, Bernie, fine. Please show me where broke white people are aligning with broke black people. And let's go down the line. Let's name right now 5 broke-ass states with a lot of black people and white people. Okay, please show me, Bernie, where class in Mississippi, they're voting for Democratic policies.
No.
Show me in South Carolina. Show me in Arkansas. Show me in Louisiana. Show me in Georgia. They're not. White.
But you know,
go ahead.
Well, say that.
William Barber, I'm glad you brought that up, Greg. It's like what William Barber talks about really is one of the messages that the Democratic Party should generally have. I mean, Bernie Sanders is not a leader in the Democratic Party, but a person like William Barber and the message that he brings should be centered. And the fact that he can't, get a meeting and get the respect of the White House is shocking to me. Those are the issues
Barber
that people should. Those are the issues you would think the party would center, and that is what we found out, I think, on Tuesday. There's so many people who are touched by those types of issues that Reverend Barber talks about, and yet he is shunned. He's shunned. He's not allowed to be on the stage at the White House in the Biden White House. So that makes no sense to me.
But guess what Barber does that Sanders will not do? Barber will say poor whites.
Oh, no question.
He will specify. So Barber doesn't run from race to class.
That's right.
Barber will mention race, class, and gender. Sanders has blinders on where for him, class overrules everything, and the facts simply dispute that because we know the realities of race.
But the issue of poverty in general is something that the parties don't like talking about.
I agree.
I'm not sure why Bernie Sanders really matters. I mean, I know he put out a statement, but I'm not sure why.
No.
Here that he matters.
Well, no, because this is not because this goes beyond Bernie Sanders. It's because there are other people. Here's why I'm saying the reason I'm saying this and doing this is because other people are saying the same thing, but what they also are denying is the reality of race. Let's take North Carolina. If I go to, and I just want, I got to try to find it real quick. But you got to answer this question. How does North Carolina elect a Democratic governor, elect a Democratic lieutenant governor? How do they win all of these statewide races, but not the presidency?
Black woman. And a black woman who is running. And again, this isn't a critique of Kamala Harris. I think Lauren is really onto this here. We all know what happened with Reverend Jackson and the Rainbow Coalition. In order to blunt that kind of progressive movement, which comes out of the 60s, of course. I mean, Fannie Lou Hamer, Mississippi Freedom Democrats, then, of course, 72, Gary, the Black Convention. The rise of Bill Clinton, the Sister Soldier moment, the whole concept of executing a black man, signing a death warrant, going back on the campaign trail. The Democratic Party made a choice in the 90s, particularly 1992. They made a choice to evade all of that force, meaning talking about the poor, talking about the kind of coalitions that Lyndon Johnson was able to copy.
Yeah, they were about the DOC. The
DLC, no question. And so here we are at a moment where whether Kamala Harris's personal sensibilities and heart was in that place, and I'm not saying they were or they won't, you can never be the nominee of the Democratic Party talking about the poor. This is what Reverend Barber's talking about, of course, and this is what Bernie Sanders is talking about, but he doesn't have race in. Finally, race in his analysis. Finally, it's very interesting because what we're seeing in the 48 hours since we all were sitting there with you and watching this election, I'm watching these black academics, people like my friends, Robin Kelly, Keeanga-Yamahtta Taylor, they're all on Democracy Now!, talking about the Democratic Party now needs to turn to that direction, the poor, the underclass, they got to change foreign policy. Guess what? That, friends, is never going to happen. So in North Carolina, the Democratic Party will continue to double down on putting the face of diversity at the top of their ticket, or putting the face of it, and they will lose elections because rather than grapple with the fact that white people are not going to vote for black people in the same numbers for the reason that you have just identified, because the rich whites gave the poor whites whiteness as battle pay to keep those poor people poor and keep the blacks away from them, the Democratic Party is going to continue to lose elections. I don't have a fix for this. You can't keep doubling down and moving right. You said it yourself many times. Bernie Sanders is the wrong messenger for sure, but the poor will remain outside of the target interest of the Democratic Party. And guess who's sitting outside in the hall with Bernie Sanders, who they can avoid comfortably? William Barber, which offends the hell out of all of us who know that that is the only way that the Democratic Party can revive itself. Until then, we're going to be for white nationalists to the thing.
All I desire, all I'm saying here, all I desire when we're having this conversation is for white Democrats like Bernie Sanders to go have direct conversations with white voters. And this is what I would love to see. I would love to see, okay, so Bernie, since you keep saying this, I want you to say, I'm gonna go, he just lost, and I wonder why he didn't do this, but I'm gonna go to Ohio with Sherrod Brown to talk to poor white people and ask them, how did y'all elect a car salesman?
That'd be a great move. Absolutely.
Who's MAGA supported?
Absolutely.
I would love for Bernie Sanders to gather some white Democrats to go to Michigan with newly elected U.S. Senator Slotkin and say, we're going to have a direct conversation. I don't need Bernie in Detroit.
Right.
I need some black people in Detroit to say, Detroit, why in the hell your turnout was 47%? That's a different conversation. I'm going to need Bernie to go into Pennsylvania, not Philly, not Pittsburgh, and the suburbs, but the other areas where the white folks act like they're in Alabama. See, again, this is the thing. It's real interesting how white Democrats who keep saying this, how they don't want to go actually engage white people.
Right.
That's all I'm saying here. So if you want to make the argument that the working class is abandoning Democrats, I'm gonna need you to commit to a movement to go specifically talk to white working class people. Absolutely. Because that's how Hillary Clinton lost Ohio by 450,000 votes.
Absolutely.
That's how Democrats lose in Georgia and North Carolina. That's how they lose in these places. And you know what the Bernie Sanders and Democrats want us to do? They want black people to over-index to make up for it. So here's your assignment, Bernie Sanders. In 2026, Tom Tillis is up for re-election in North Carolina for the United States Senate. I want you, Bernie Sanders, to target white working class people in North Carolina, white rural voters in North Carolina, and I want you to go to them to make the argument, whoever's going to be the Democratic nominee for the United States Senate, and also why they support the Democratic nominee for president in 2028. I don't want you going to black counties. I want you going to talk to the white folks, because this is the problem. As we said with Jane Elliott, until white Democrats go have honest conversation with white working class voters, they gonna keep supporting folk like Donald Trump.
That's right.
Just saying. All right.
That's right.
Appreciate all of y'all being on the show today. Niambe, thanks a bunch. Niambe, I understand you got to partake in some of the food we had Tuesday night. yesterday?
I did what?
Were you hanging out with Jason Johnson yesterday?
I did.
Did he bring some food to y'all?
He did. He was kind enough, and he credited you, Roland.
I just want to make sure that he shared the food with you.
Your proper due.
I just want to make sure he shared the food with y'all. So he came. Yes. First of all, Greg, he came by, and he stopped by. Because it was a group of us, and they were talking about getting together. I said, well, hey, y'all can come by the studio and get some of the leftovers. And Jason I'm gonna stop by. So I grabbed a fork. Jason ass was filling up one of the big trays. And I was like, what? Jason, what? He said, oh. He said, he's like, oh no, I got some students and the Ambi, some other people. I said, your ass feeding a group of people. So Jason didn't come by for a plate. Jason came by for a tray.
Well, he's at Morgan State, so me and Jan, we give him an HBCU pass. I'm sure he would if he was. But I mean, when did he come? We left you at 4 o'clock in the morning.
No. He came yesterday afternoon before. Okay. So he came by.
Like, good Lord.
He
feeding the people.
Right. He came by. I thought he was coming out for a plate. No, he came by for a tray. So just want to make sure you got some of that. Niambe, Greg, Lauren, I appreciate it. Thanks a lot. Y'all be well. Folks, support the work that we do. All y'all on YouTube, all y'all should be hitting the like button, okay? Every single one of y'all, okay? We should have way more than 2,600 likes. And so it's been more than 8,000 of y'all watching live right now. So matter of fact, y'all hit the button right now. We should be at 4,000 by the time I finish, okay? Y'all should hit that like button. We should be at 4,000 by the time I finish. Y'all, do me a favor. You also please support the show. I hate the fact that Cash App has completely screwed up. Y'all been able to give money. So many people gave so easily on Cash App because it was simple. But your donations are critically important for the work that we do. We've got some great plans. We had some greater plans that Vice President Kamala Harris won. We still got some great plans to do more content, to create more shows. And so we want your support. So send your check and money order. So here's what we're asking. Our goal is simple, to get 20,000 of our fans annually. If we get 20,000 of our fans annually contributing at least $50 each, which comes out to $4.19 a month, 13 cents a day, then it raises $1 million. That is important because, y'all, all this stuff costs. Staff, studio, equipment, travel, all this stuff costs. And so your support is crucially important. And y'all have been amazing since we started this journey. Our fan base is awesome. I told y'all I don't see in swag. All the money goes right back into the show to pay for the things we pay for. We're trying. I mean, and I ain't got no problem. I'm telling you right now. Right now, we're trying to hire 3 new staffers. And it's going to be about $185,000 to $200,000, okay? And so when I say these things, I'm in very serious terms of what we're trying to do. And so everything, look, like we're paying for, okay? You know, our expenses are $195,000 a month, okay? So I'm being real clear with y'all in terms of what we're doing. So when you give, trust me, it all goes to make this show possible. And we have other shows that we're doing as well. And so send your check and money order to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C., 20037-0196. YouTube, we had 3,400 likes. We need 600 more to get to 4,000. Y'all hit that damn like button. Let's go. Y'all playing around. PayPal is R. Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle is Roland at RolandSMartin.com. Download our Blackstar Network app. Okay, you can take it wherever you go. Of course, that's available on Apple phone, Android phone, Apple TV, Android TV, Roku, Amazon Fire TV, Xbox One, Samsung Smart TV. Also get the Blackstar Network. Download, get my book, White Fear: How the Browning of America is Making White Folks Lose Their Minds. Available at bookstores nationwide. Get the audio version on Audible. Y'all be sure to get the graphic from Keenan. Also, y'all, we podcast this show. And so we're available on all podcast platforms. And so if you want to download the audio to this show, then you can do that as well. And also, so let me go ahead and address this. So you got somebody sitting here. I love this person's name. I know better than you. Can someone explain spending $200K a month on YouTube channel expenses? Well, clearly your ass don't know better than me. And so since you want to understand why you have $195,000 expenses, I'll tell you rent is $20,000 alone. You also have staffing costs that also cost that are more than $100,000. We're now up to $120,000. Since you want to ask these questions, okay, there are literally 15 people that we actually pay. You've got a director, a producer, associate producers. You've got graphics person, a video playback. You've got audio. You've got freelancers. You've got an assistant. You've got a digital person. You've got a CFO. You've got a bookkeeper. You've got an accounting department. Those are called expenses. For the people who don't understand business, the person I know better than you. So while you're watching this show going, oh, I'm watching a YouTube channel. No, this is an actual show. We're not sitting in a closet broadcasting the show. This is their actual real cost. The live view unit we use, the rack unit is $40,000. The 2 live views we have, they're $20,000 each. The cost for a Blackstar Network app is $140,000 a year. Again, for the person who doesn't understand business, these are called expenses. Associated Press, to be able to get AP content, is $170,000 a year. So when you watch this show and you're seeing all of these things, those things cost money. And that's why 32,000 people have donated to our show since we launched September 4th, 2018. And so while some of you may just sit at home thinking, oh, I'm just watching this, yeah, don't think for a second I don't monitor comments because I see when you're saying stuff. So if y'all want to support the work that we do and not freeload, pull it up again. Check and money order, P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C., 20037-0196. And I love this person sitting here going, oh, this channel is so repulsive. Guess what, Muffy? You now are blocked. Anybody else want to get blocked? I got time since the show is over. Send your check and money order, P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C., 20037-0196. PayPal, R. Martin Unfiltered. Venmo, RM Unfiltered. Zelle, Roland at RolandSMartin.com. Roland at RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. Folks, that's it. I'll see y'all tomorrow. Holla! Blackstar Network is here.
Oh, no punch!
I'm real revolutionary right now.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, there's a difference between Blackstar Network and black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig?